pain that started with IL&FS defaults is clearly not over. It's evident in the monthly data released by AMFI today, but mutual fund seems to have learned their lesson. Joining us now to give us a perspective on what's going on, Dhirendra Kumar, CEO at Value Research. Dhirendra, thank you so much indeed for joining us today. Your initial thoughts on the debt outflow number that we've seen of 18,000 crore, does that come as a surprise to you?
No, not at all. One is that, it was expected. Investors are getting jittery. Particularly, some of the, of course, it was not unexpected that some funds will face a problem. But the way it has been perceived, and some of the funds, where they have large exposure, because many of these instruments as part of the portfolio, they are visible to investors because of great transparency by mutual funds. But some of these funds were actually not hit by the downgrade because the valuation will get affected only once they formally they are downgraded or they are defaulting. So in that sense, active investors had the opportunity to get out of the fund. They were aware of the problem, and it was just a matter of time that it will happen. So agile active investors did walk out of the fund, so it was quite expected.
Okay. I just want to try and pull up that chart of that equity flow, monthly equity flow, equity fund flows, if you can bring that up. Dhirendra, my question is, are you seeing, that's the one, equity fund flow trend, and this is from April of last year to about April of this year, and how you're seeing the overall equity fund flow sort of going up during the middle of this year and then sort of falling off. Dhirendra, my question to you is mutual fund as a category facing a risk because of these nervousness that you're seeing in the debt market, or do you believe that the strength in the SIP book is intact and that gives you confidence that look, mutual fund money is going to continue to be as robust as it was last year?
Oh, the mutual fund industry is completely independent. In fact, there are two mutual fund industries in India. One is the fixed income industry and the other is the equity funds industry. And both have different dynamics. They have different set of investors. They are appeal to different investors, and they don't match. Individual investors, for them, the destination for fixed income is not fixed income funds. It was just beginning to happen. So in that sense, they are quite independent. The dynamics of the fixed income industry is understandable. There is a complete risk aversion. Right now, people were not in for the kind of surprise that they were not prepared for the surprise that they are getting, and the problem is unlikely to get resolved very quickly because the nature of the debt resolution. However, the magnitude or the scale of the problem is not very significant. Despite that, it has a bearing. Nearly 1/3 of the fixed income mutual fund that exists today have some problem security or the other, 245 to be precise.
Correct.
Even though their total exposure is just about 1.5%. So the magnitude of the problem may not be significant, but the bearing on the number of funds is quite significant. Equity fund is a completely different story. We see a big churn. I think the great thing that has happened in equity fund is that we have the mutual fund industry has been able to build a large SIP book that remains sustainable and still growing. So I don't think that is a problem. That's a very desirable kind of money for mutual fund. Yes, there are investors who are getting jittery. First-time investors who, chasing recent past performance is investors' favorite pastime. And what happened in 2007 when we saw the start of these flows and also one-time flows in the small and mid-cap, which has taken the biggest hit. Some of those investors are losing patience and walking away. That could be a very messy loss and a permanent loss for their fund industry. But by and large, the kind of SIP book, I find that domestic individual fund investors have proven to be contrarian investors, and they have or very disciplined investors so far.